Okay, so here's the scoop on how certain terrorist groups have reacted to the possibility of Donald Trump coming back into office and what they see as a possible weakening of US power worldwide. Right. So even though Trump's known for his tough image, like a no-nonsense kind of guy, some groups that typically see the US as the enemy actually seem to think his return could work in their favor. Let's break down why. So yeah, Trump's talked about reducing the US military presence overseas, something he pitched during his last term and again this election season. He's also mentioned a desire to drain the swamp, which could involve firing a lot of people in national security agencies whom he believes are disloyal. This shakeup might actually make it easier for extremist groups to operate, or at least that's what some are hoping. On rocket.chat, which is this encrypted platform, followers of the Islamic State are buzzing about the election. They're not exactly Trump fans, of course. I mean, they remember that he ordered the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the IS leader, back in 2019. But they're still having a conversation about what his presidency might mean. Like, they're dropping poop and vomit emojis at the news of his win, so clearly they're not thrilled. But they're also saying things like Trump leans towards Russia, which from their point of view could end up being a good thing. I see. So some of these members think that a Trump administration might align more with Russia, which would weaken the US, role on the world stage, especially with Russia's situation in Ukraine. Right? And there's a history here. Has long seen Russia as an enemy, but they believe the war in Ukraine has actually stretched Russia's resources thin, which could make Russia a softer target. He has already capitalized on this earlier in the year with that brutal attack in Moscow where over 140 people were killed. So if the US pulls back on global influence under Trump, they might see it as a sign of American decline. And they think that could create a power vacuum they could exploit. Now, moving to another app, Telegram, kind of a hub for far-right groups as well. Some extremist factions there, especially neo-Nazi groups like the defunct Atomwaffen Division, seem surprisingly enthusiastic about the idea of a Trump presidency. Yeah, they're talking about this Project 2025, which would cut federal agencies like the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. So these are like the main agencies that work to counter terrorist activities. And if they're weakened, some of these far-right groups think they might have more freedom to organize or recruit without interference. So what's Trump's plan here? He and Elon Musk are reportedly looking at ways to reduce federal workers as part of a government efficiency commission. You might wonder why these groups care about Musk, right? Well, Musk's ownership of X, formerly Twitter, has also been mentioned in these extremist conversations. They're saying Musk's decision-making has given more freedom to Russian influences on the platform, which some see as a sign that the US is losing control over its own media channels. Right? So with all this government efficiency talk, the extremists think they could end up seeing a lot of FBI agents, DHS officers, and maybe even CIA agents laid off or replaced with newcomers loyal to Trump. From their perspective, that's great. Like one of them put it, while in actuality slashing the federal bureaucracy to a minimum and filling the roles with newbie loyalists is retarded from a system power point of view, we're happy with it. So yeah, they know it doesn't make sense from a professional standpoint, but it could actually benefit them. Okay, but let's get into some specifics on far-right expectations. They're saying that Trump could mean breathing room for these groups. Joshua Fisher Birch, a terrorism analyst with the Counter-Extremism Project, explains that some of these groups are anticipating a possible relief from law enforcement scrutiny. They see the Trump administration as potentially more sympathetic or at least less interested in monitoring them, and that's a green light for them to mobilize more freely. For instance, imprisoned white nationalist Rob Rundo, a prominent figure in far-right circles, has also voiced support for Trump. Although he doesn't think Trump is the perfect solution to their cause, he acknowledges that having him in office could mean the difference between staying behind bars and getting out. One group in particular, the Blood Tribe, which is a violent neo-Nazi organization known for showing up armed to public events, is worried that even if Trump's administration is generally more hands-off, they still might be targeted as a concession to mainstream Republicans. Like one of their leaders, an ex-Marine, mentioned that federal interference in their activities could even increase as a way to make Trump's administration look tougher on extremists, keeping up appearances, So the picture's complicated. On one hand, Trump's tough-on-crime image doesn't naturally sit well with groups who've been classified as terrorists or violent extremists. On the other, some of them see him as a potential catalyst for weakening America's grip on global power structures, especially if he pursues policies that pull back military forces or destabilize national security agencies.